Dave here and Darren over there. We are your two old bloggers, and we are here today to talk three topics that are near and dear to the Vikings' heart. The first one is the Underwear Olympics, presently taking place in Indianapolis, the NFL Combine. We're watching the big round bellies running faster than some of the running backs today. Also, we're going to go into, as requested, the interior line possible free agents, the ones that are up for free agents, and who we might like. And there are a few of them there. And to wrap it all up, we are going to look at our deep dive, deep thoughts on the Vikings running back room. Right after this. As Drew said, let's rock. We are all still alive. The world has not come to an end yet. So let's talk some Vikings. But first, Darren, how are things in the great white frozen north?
They're good, Dave. And as we start to really heat up with the NFL offseason, Vikings coaching staff all picked. Underwear Olympics have started, well on their way. Let's talk some Vikings football, Vikings stuff.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into it. Boom. We bring up our normal conversation mode right here. And we will start, as I scroll down, with the first topic of the day. You talked about the Underwear Olympics. It is the scouting combine. What have you gleaned so far?
Unlike some of you football junkies, I have not been watching it. Just listening. I don't know. I have a hard time getting excited about the 40-yard dashes and guys running around cones and all of that sort of thing. But I do enjoy listening, to other people who are there and following it pretty closely and seeing what they're picking up, and the and particularly when it comes to the Vikings, and who the players that are attending the combine and that the Vikings have visited with, and we are hearing a few names that they have been visiting with. Not a whole lot of names. The last I saw was about 5 guys, and I found it was an interesting list of 5 guys, um, and because you got them up there right now. We got uh, Treylon Burks from Arkansas, the wide receiver, the 2 quarterbacks, Desmond Ritter and Malik Willis. You got right guard Cole Strange from Tennessee Chattanooga, and then Travis Jones from UConn, Chuck Falconeri alma mater, and what I thought was interesting about those 5 dudes that the Vikings have reportedly visited with is
Interviewed.
that
Yeah.
if you look, yeah, interviewed. If you For me, the Vikings off-season needs would go in this order. Maybe not necessarily everybody would be cornerback, linebacker, interior offensive line, safety, edge rusher, and you could look at potentially, depending on what happens with Kirk Cousins, backs in there too. But although only most of those positions, the Vikings have not visited with players who play those positions. So,
That
and
have
if
been
we keep Cousins,
reported yet. Hold on.
yeah, that's right. That's
Every
right.
year we go up and right before the draft, I'll gather everybody that's been um what is it? I want to say Pop Warner, but I don't think that's it. But it may be Pop Warner Sports gives a list of who's been interviewed. We have people that track who the beat writers who are they reporting that we've interviewed, who we've seen at the Senior Bowl, at East West Shrine game, here, combine and stuff. Because always in the past, out of that list, a good percentage of them get selected. So we do care about who the Vikings have actually interviewed. And I'm sure the way this whole system works is while they're in Indy, the teams say, I want to talk to these guys. And each day there's a section of time set out where these guys bounce from hotel room to hotel room to hotel room or suites because each team has their own suite, right, to whatever it is. And they get directed, all right, so now it's your turn to go talk with the Vikings. And player X, knock, 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 I'm here. What do you want to talk about? And
Yeah.
they get hammered with questions. Um, but this bunch that you picked out is interesting. One, Malik Willis. Two, you've got that other quarterback from Cincy there,
Desmond
what
Ritter.
Desmond Ritter, which I don't know is better than Mond or not, but hey, they can interview everybody. I'm all for it. And you've got guys, you've got a guard, you've got a wide receiver, speedy one, right, Drew? Drew and I were talking before the show on how fast this wide receiver group is. And burners would definitely help because we don't have any real burners. We got great wide receivers, but nothing that's, zing and he's gone type deal. I don't know that Kirk Cousins would throw to him anyways, but that's a different story. um, but this is interesting because this is showing you a little bit of what Kwesi and Kevin are looking for. That they're interested in these guys. So it's interesting.
That's
TD
right.
hands, Pickett. Does he drop?
Yeah.
I can answer that, Lauren. I think so. I had when I heard 8.5, I had to measure mine. Mine are much larger than that. It's 8.5 is awful hard. Can he play football? Yes. Does it increase the likelihood of fumbles? Yes. I don't know. I think the NFL ball is bigger, but I even had to look that up. Depends on the inflation level. They could be about the same. But I think he drops. But that's just me.
Well, there's still a lot of teams that are in need of a QB this year, and Pickett is right now was going into the draft was considered by a lot of people that I've seen as the either the top or the second best QB available, which means somebody is going to pick him. I
Somebody's going to
think
get him.
in the first round, and will it be in the top 10? I wouldn't be surprised when you look at a team like Carolina and others who are QB needy, and as Drew says there in the comments, Ritter has had a great combine. And that's really going to improve his stock, because I know there's a lot of questions about him, the competition he's faced in the past, and some inconsistencies in his game that we're seeing, particularly this year when he got a lot of press and coverage because of Cincinnati having such a great year and Ritter being the quarterback on that team and leading a pretty potent offense. So there's been a lot of eyes on him. Still, an interesting list of these 5 guys. As you mentioned, the Vikings will visit and interview a lot of players over the next, leading up to the draft, and I have visited with ones at the Senior Bowl, which has already occurred. But again, interesting that even though that as far as we know, they haven't visited with any linebackers or corners, which I think is maybe they'll do that later on in the week. But there's a lot of smoke and mirrors at this time. Do are you, if you visit with somebody, are you tipping your hand and then creating the chance that a team that's drafting ahead of you can use that as the fact that you visited somebody as leverage and try to entice you into making a move or maneuver you, or get you to make a trade that maybe you'd rather not make, or force you to trade up? We don't know, but the fact that Ritter and Willis are there, that's interesting, of course, because of the QB situation. Really, are the O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah talked the past couple of weeks about, and the other coordinators that were unveiled to the team last week, about getting to know your roster. And they don't have much time to do it, but as they look at that roster, have they determined, despite all the nice things they've said about Cousins, that is this a signal somehow that they're sure maybe they're going to stick with Cousins this year, but only this year, in which case they need a viable option for 2023? And do they consider using number 12 to pick somebody like Ritter or Willis at that spot? Because you probably aren't going to get those guys in the second round, and certainly probably not in the second round where the Vikings are going to select. So that's an interesting a couple of guys that they've.
I was listening to one of the podcasts. I want to say it was PFF. For the first time ever, or first time this season, in one of their mock drafts, they had 5 quarterbacks going in the first round, and this is supposed to be a quarterback week class.
Yep.
And it's just, we know quarterbacks get overvalued and pumped up. That's normal. But the fact that it's a weak class, yet they showed 5 going, because there's 5 teams that could be, hey, I'm taking a quarterback. That's pretty something. And we've had weak classes before that turned out to have some great quarterbacks in them. The one with Mahomes, for one, was considered a weak class. And it's, you never know. There's the gamble, the crapshoot of how well it actually does turn out. You get a guy that's still developing, or you look at a guy that's already polished and, can he develop more? You don't know. We don't know until we see them with NFL footballs, behind NFL players, and this goes for all positions. This guy could have been a stud, and most of them are an absolute stud from Pee Wee football on up through college, and then they get to the NFL level, and suddenly they're playing guys that are bigger, stronger, faster, and better than they are, and it's all in how they deal with it. Do they continue to grow and meet that level, or do they stay at whatever present level they are and even wash out? So we'll find out.
Yeah, and the other thing with visiting with these Willis and Ritter. The other side of the coin is that the Vikings could be doing that gamesmanship on their end, and getting somebody who's interested in those who are drafting after the Vikings to trade with the Vikings at number 12, and then we get recoup maybe that fourth rounder that we traded for Herndon,
or
plus
some other assets.
Some other assets, right? So there's that aspect to it too, but it does make at least me think about the whole possibility of the Vikings. Neither of these guys, I think, would maybe certainly Ritter more than, if you're picking Willis, unlikely he's going to start in year one. He needs a lot of, I think, development. Ritter more polished, but I think there'd be questions about whether it'd be wise to start him in year one too. Maybe the Vikings are, as they would, do due diligence on all of these QBs that they think could be with there at 12, and that they'd actually really seriously consider picking one of these dudes at 12 and let Cousins play this year and then let him walk, and then they've got like the Culpepper situation in 2000, where he's had a year to sit on the bench, soak it all in, and then starts the next year. I don't know. Treylon Burks was interesting because I was looking up all of the visits on WalterFootball.com. They had a list of all the they had a list of all the players that had been visiting at the combine, and I think Burks was on every team. He'd visited. He was a busy boy this week. I think he's had a mixed combine. I saw some rave reviews and some not so rave reviews about him. I think he ran, when they talk about fast 40 times, he was one of the guys who did not run a particularly fast one. Wasn't it in the 4.5s or something like that? But a very strong wide receiver class. It looks, as you mentioned, David, and Burks is considered one of the top guys in that class. And maybe this is again them looking at him, kicking tires on him. Is that an indication that Adam Thielen, who is a potential cap casualty, I don't think wide receiver is a need right now, but if you let go Adam Thielen, I think it certainly rises up the charts.
It sure does. And when you talk about Burks not having a particularly good one, he may be holding back. I learned today, listening to one of the deals, that Diggsy, right there. For those that can't see, it's one of my pieces of artwork right back there. You can see Diggsy. Diggsy held back at the combine and didn't show everything. Now, you got to remember, these guys got pro days, too, which during the pro days, they're going to be more likely to show what they can do. One, because they're with players they're used to and have chemistry with. That goes a lot for the quarterbacks, but it also goes for the wide receivers. And then they're going to want to show off the schools. So if Burks had a 4.5 at the combine at the Ohio State Pro Day, he might run a 4.3 and just go, see, I can run a 4.3. Now, people go, well, that's a different track. It's different, blah, blah, blah. But it's still, when you're looking at people that are doing the evaluations, they're going to take that and go, right? They're not going to discount that, maybe like we might. They're going to say, dude's fast. He's the real deal. Yep. He can catch the football. He's high on our draft board.
I've seen
he's got Debo magic.
Yeah, I'd heard the same thing. I'd heard him like A.J. Brown comparisons with the Titans, if you can get a guy who comes in his rookie like Brown did and perform like that, you're doing pretty well. But again, another interesting visit for the Vikings, just because, again, if Thielen's back, you wouldn't really consider, even though I think this is Thielen, I believe he's going to stay, and I think this will be Thielen's last year with the Vikings, so you'd need somebody to step up after in 2023, and maybe that's Burks, but I don't think that, but still very interesting that Burks
could be Ozzy Osbourne, KJ Osbourne.
That's right.
And I could see Adam taking a discount, cutting his pay, because I think he's going to get approached that way, and then just to stay in the sort of like the Fitzgerald role, where he's the senior statesman, he's the good possession receiver, he's the wide receiver 3, and that be a benefit to the Vikings. But it's going to depend how Kwesi and Kevin deal with how they're going to free up space money wise to get other things that they need to build this team up to go in the vision that they want to go. So
that's right. But I guess keep an eye on Burks and maybe some of the other wide receivers too. As I said, it's a deep crop. That visiting Burks doesn't mean that the Vikings are really interested in him. Again, it could be a smokescreen. They could be doing it for to throw off the scent to a wide receiver that they actually are targeting, and maybe a little bit in later rounds of the NFL draft. But some financial player decisions are going to be made here in the next couple of weeks, and so Thielen might be one to watch for if we're looking for wide receivers at the combine.
Next couple of weeks, we have a little over 10 days. The new league year starts March 16th. Today is the 5th. They've got to be under the cap by March 16th. So there's going to be a lot of decisions made here in the next 10 days or so.
A lot of work to be done, yes.
Which brings us to free agency. What also starts on that new league year is free agency. And today it was requested by Rydell Viking, one of our UK viewers, that we focus on interior offensive line free agents. So that's what
here we go.
Let's first start off with our guys.
Yep. We had gone over the offensive line in our positional deep dives a few weeks ago, and my opinion was that I think that the Vikings are set at 3 of the positions right now, and that's Brian O'Neill at right tackle, Christian Darrisaw at left tackle, and Ezra Cleveland at left guard. Where the question marks are at center, with is Garrett Bradbury going to be the guy, and at right guard, I don't think Oliudo is the guy. I think you and I, Dave, would like Wyatt Davis to be the guy, but we don't know much about him
because he steps up to that. Yes,
right. We don't know much about the guy because he never didn't get a sniff of the field as a rookie, and we'd heard about weight problem issues and all of that. So are the Vikings, can they address it in free agency? Yes. But first off, as we talked about earlier, they're going to have to do a lot of work with the salary cap situation. They will get under the cap, and they always do. And Rob Brzezinski and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah will get that done.
They don't have a choice.
They don't have a choice. And they always seem to be, in the past, Brzezinski has always seemed to be able to get us well under the cap with money to spend, at least on some priority free agents. Right. The past few years it's been a little bit less than others, but that's not always a bad thing, because I think a lot of times free agency is really a lot of fool's gold out there, and that
some of it can be.
I think that if you're trying to sign 5 or 6 high-priced free agents, you haven't done a very good job with your roster. And you're always picking up guys at other teams, even despite their reputation. The teams were actually willingly let them go. Let them
walk. Yeah.
Yeah. But so for the Vikings to address it, first off, they're going to have to do some work with the salary cap. I think there are 2 ways for them to go about this. Is perhaps Cam and Kevin O'Connell have decided that they're going in with Cousins this year, and they feel that in order to do that, they're going to try to give Cousins the best offensive line he's ever had as a Viking. In which case, I think then they might really consider, if they can get under the cap sufficiently enough, of going after a center and a right guard in free agency to shore up and get some, pretty established starters there that what kind of you're pretty confident about the kind of play you're going to get at the NFL level from them, and that will supplement what I think and the other three positions are pretty solid guys.
Right.
And then then you've got the three guys that we already mentioned: Darrisaw, O'Neill, and Cleveland can give you a pretty good play. Plop in a couple of plug and play starters with free agency, and we're cooking with gas with the offensive line, and hopefully that they're going to play at a level that whereas Cousins doesn't get pressured very much, and he's got all day to pick and choose and throw it. In which case, like the free agent guys, there's a lot of names out there, but really one that pops up open right away is Ryan Jensen, right? Probably the top center on the free agent board right now. Played with Super Bowl winner with Tampa Bay. I'm still not convinced that the Vikings are ready to move on from Garrett Bradbury, as bad as he has looked a lot of times. But Jensen would be despite along the fact that he's I think a very good center, a very good player. He's a mean, nasty guy out there. I think that he could really add a bit of bite and an attitude to this offensive line that I think it's been lacking a bit of an edge, a hard-nosed attitude, and they could use that. So he'd be a guy that I'd love the Vikings to look at. The only thing is that I've seen projections that he's probably a guy that's going to get $10 million a year on average in this free agency period. And I just don't know.
I've got a slide for that,
but
we'll get to that momentarily.
And I just don't know if the Vikings are going to go there at a center at that price.
Okay.
But again, Jensen is a guy who's appealing to me again because of what we just said. Good player and really mean and nasty, and can add a little something to the Vikings offensive line that I think they've been lacking the past few years. So that is, Jensen is certainly there, but he's going to have a lot of suitors. A couple of other potential guys, if you're looking at right guard, one thing you got is somebody the Vikings scouting staff would know well would be James Daniels, right guard with the Bears. He'd come in as a bit of a center as well as a right guard. Pro Football Focus had his blocking ratings were pretty good last year, especially when he got settled into right guard. I'm surprised that the Bears haven't extended him because he's young. I think he's 24 years old.
Would you like to see his grades? I don't have a picture of him, but I do have his grades. Right here, I put together this week, researching all of this, a spreadsheet using on the right-hand side in the gray, PFF's top 200. You can see where they rank. And that's the top 200 of all free agent, includes all positions. So if you look at Brandon Sheriff, he's their number 18 on the board. And you could look over overall PFF grade is 73.6. Pass blocking, which I have this chart sorted as, 72.4. And run blocking, 73.7. Anything above 70 is good. Once you get into the blue, you're outstanding. So you can look at this. This is my color-coded chart to make things easy. On this chart, I have centers and guards. Now, on the left-hand side, I have it broken down by OTC's database of who's going to be free agents. And I have it sorted here, what team they are presently on, how much money they made APY under their last contract. And if you look besides the snap column, which tells you how often they played, if like you go down third from the bottom, you see Austin Blythe, he only played 1%. Obviously, something was wrong there. Or above him, Matt Paredes, who played 49%. He probably got hurt. That shows you. But in the column to the right of that, you have their age at the start of this upcoming season. So you know
this is a great chart.
Who's the old guys, who's the young guys, etc. Then we go over to the right of the PFF grades, and you see their projected contracts per PFF, and this is from their Trying to remember his name. He's from OTC, came over to PFF. How much these guys most likely will be paid. And this is the average APR. It is not, you can figure you can probably take 40% of that as a signing bonus type deal and then reduce the numbers there. Everybody knows who Brandon Scherf is. They're expecting 3 years, 16.67 million a year. Yes, it would be nice. He's older. Now you got to remember, linemen can play well into their mid 30s. So that's not, a real big deal. And linemen don't come into their own until they're usually into their mid to upper 20s. It takes a while to develop. So if you want to go young, first contract guys, some of these you see there. You wanted the one for the Bears you were talking about, James Daniels, right? Which
Yep.
one were you? And if you look at him, he's only 25. He's got a pass block grade of 68.3, which is not bad. Not bad at all. It's a lot better than the Vikings had on the right side. And he plays right guard, and he's got a better run grade over 70, and he's got a 71 overall grade. And something like that, and they expect a $10 million payment on average, would be outstanding. At 25, you give him a 5-year deal. Boom, that takes you to 30. That position's solved, right? That's the easy way to
Yep.
do this if they can free up the money space for it. There are a few people on this list I like. I was surprised at Connor Williams from the Cowboys. I doubt the Cowboys let him go. Plus, he plays left guard. I put scheme. The schemes aren't all correct. If I put gap, they play either gap or power is what they're good at. The zone guys are what I put in there. Some I couldn't find out what sort of scheme they're running. But if you can get green across the board, you're getting a great guard no matter what, or a great center. Your center for the Buccaneers, where is he? He should have been on the list.
Ryan Jensen.
Ryan Jensen.
Yeah, he's there. He's under Glowinski.
Yep. His pass blocking isn't as good, but look at that run blocking grade. Oh my God. Right? But he's another high price guy. If you go for the younger guys, unless they're really, really good, they don't tend to be that expensive. For example, James Daniels of the Bears, who we talked about, he's $10 million. That's expensive. Or go Austin Corbett of the Rams. Now, this is a big one, and I do have a picture of him. Austin Corbett, they're only anticipating that he's, still that's pretty expensive. 9.25 mil per year, 4-year deal. But there are some relative bargains in there that are good. Now, I wouldn't get anybody on this list below a 60 on a pass blocking grade. So you can drop those guys. I wouldn't be interested. Mm-hmm. But you can look above and start seeing, hey, there are people here. So we're going to mostly run a zone scheme, but we're going to run a little bit of everything. So if you've got a guy that's good across the board, he's generally good across the board for everything, and I want that. My number one choice on this is Connor Williams because of his age and his price, and that he is getting 76s across the board. But like I said, I don't think Dallas is going to get rid of him.
Likely not. Williams was one of the guys that I was surprised with too, because he took a lot of heat this year for all the holding penalties he'd been taking. But when he wasn't holding guys, he was doing a pretty good job. Mm-hmm. But as we know, when the flags get thrown and your number gets called, you often take a lot of heat for that. But we talked about Jensen and talked about James Daniels. I think a couple of other people that they're to keep an eye out on for as far as availability mm-hmm. goes, because that list there is who is scheduled to be a free agent.
Right.
Come the league year, or actually come, I think, Monday when, not only Monday, guys, I think is the deadline for
Tags.
franchise and the tags. Maybe not all of these guys will get tagged, but some of these guys will get re-signed by their teams. They won't
Right.
hit the open market. But particularly Jensen and Alex Kappa, right guard with the Bucks, as well as Brian Allen and Austin Corbett for the Rams. Why I'm highlighting those for a couple of reasons is you've got teams that have they've got two guys who are going to hit the open market
Mm-hmm.
and draw significant interest. I don't think the Bucks and the Rams can keep both,
Right.
particularly the Rams, who have a pretty top-heavy, expensive roster, and it's going to probably get more expensive with winning the Super Bowl and having to
Mm-hmm.
pay guys as a result. But so either Kappa or Jensen will be on the free market, and either Allen or Corbett, I think, will be on the free market. Maybe not both, but one of them will. In which case, that gives the Vikings an opportunity to go after them. The Rams are both Allen and Corbett, and I mentioned Corbett as a potential Vikings free agent um, target in when we talked about the O line, because the, the basically half of the Sean McVay
They.
Rams coaching staff is now at the Vikings. Kevin O'Connell, Wes Phillips, they know Brian Allen and Austin Corbett, all the way through. Both of them were starters with those teams, and you see Allen's grades are for PFF are super, super, super good. Hell of a lot better than Garrett Bradbury's.
Oh yes.
So I think we don't know what O'Connell feels about those two guys, gentlemen, but I imagine he feels pretty good about them. I think you've got to keep an eye out for both of those as potentially at least one of them landing with the Vikings, especially if O'Connell feels and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah feel that Wyatt Davis is not the answer at right guard for the Vikings.
Well, you got Corbett here. One thing about Corbett is if he brings Corbett in, Corbett knows the offense he wants to run, right? He
Indeed.
will help the rest of the line in the transition to whatever that is grow. That's why you're not the first one on the network to do it. Deshaun Vaughn brought up Corbett, that very much keep an eye out for this kid because he may be a target because he has the knowledge of what is going on, and that can help.
Yeah, interesting times for the Vikings offensive line. Remember, it is a need. It's been a sore point for many, many years.
Yeah.
And in 2017, the Vikings went into the market and they got Mike Remmers and Riley Reef to shore up the tackle spots, because because 2016 was such a train wreck for the offensive line, and it probably cost the Vikings a trip to the playoffs. And they went to free agency to fix it. We had no options. We had let go of Matt Khalil. We had no options really in house to start. So we spent big bucks on Remmers and Khalil. Are we going to do it again in 2022? When I think the offensive line is in better shape now than it was in 2017, but
Yes.
still, when you look at the Vikings' weakness on offensive line, it's always it's always in the middle. It's been in the middle for the past 4 or 5 years. The pressure happens up the middle. Guys, we just don't seem to be stout enough, mean enough, tough enough in the
Right.
interior on our offensive line.
To deal with it. And we haven't been for a long time. Lauren, you said Wyatt Davis is still unknown. I disagree with that. He was known last year in the fact that he came in overweight, out of shape, and couldn't bust the starting lineup even into the season playing just special teams roles. How much of that was the pissing contest between Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer? We don't know. But the fact that virtually all the beat reporters during training camp said he's not getting it. He's not in shape. He's not close. He's not even there. Now, I argued with one of those beat reporters that's a good friend of mine that he should have been in shape within a couple months easily of that. You know, in the military, we go through rigorous stuff to get in shape. He should be able to get in shape just as easily. And he would say, no, he never did. They don't have time. I think that's bullshit. But he never cracked it. He had reps on the special teams, but he was never good enough to crack it. Now, what I do like about Wyatt Davis is that this offseason he has been down here in Dallas working specifically on his shape and his training and hooked up with a very good offensive line coach, and he's learning his job. He may have made a mistake and now he's trying to rectify it. He's learning. That's a sign of maturity. You want that in your players. I hope that is the case because two-time All-American at Ohio State, he did some damage, especially his junior year. Watching his film on him it was enough to give you, well excited and wanting some alone time. But the difference between that and when he graduated and came in the NFL, there was a drop-off. And then, like we said before in the first segment, you don't know which guys are going to continue their growth or which guys are going to wash out. But last year, Wyatt Davis hurt himself. Hopefully this season he does not. And hopefully he comes in and becomes that dominant guy that scores in the 70s. Please. It makes it easy because he's a draft choice. He's under his rookie contract. That makes, not spending money a lot easier. But we'll find out. All right, on to the next subject. Have you noticed up there in the top corner, there's a logo, Darren?
I have noticed.
What's that logo?
I'm trying to wonder. It says Lake Monster, I believe.
Yes, Lake Monster Brewing Company. Lake Monster Brewing Company and Climbing the Pocket joined together this week to do joint sponsorships where we're going to grow together our brands. Lake Monster is in St. Paul, and it is a microbrew house that serves some outstanding food, but their beer is even better. They've got some IPAs to die for, from what I'm being told. Everybody up in Minneapolis is like, Dave, you got to try this. Dave, you got to try that. It's great, right? Their motto is 10,000 lakes and only one monster, right? It's rare and extraordinary. And we look forward to our partnership working together. We will be doing some live shows and part of the live draft show on the Draft Extravaganza from Lake Monster itself, the brew house. So that should be fun. We'll have guys coming in. You'll come in for a little bit. We'll have 4 or 5 guys there at Lake Monster drinking and, watching the draft and talking. They'll all be mic'd up and ready to go. And then we'll go on from there. But until then, Lake Monster and Climbing the Pocket has a giveaway for you. If you look up this tweet and see, follow Climbing the Pocket, follow Lake Monster Brew, their Twitter handle, like and retweet that post, and everybody that does that by March 9th will be in the drawing for, it'll be announced on Vikings Happy Hour of March 9th, for the Lake Monster Brew hat, which I could use, and a Lake Monster Brew sign, mini sign, right, which you see behind it. Those are some cool prizes. They're going to be even more in the future as we talk monster of the game, monster play of the game, right? And we talk monster fan, right, that can get into it. So now's your chance. Make sure you follow Climbing the Pocket, follow Lake Monster Brew. And this is easy. This is just Twitter. We're not even asking for the likes, subscribe, and ring the bell here on YouTube yet. That's just Twitter. And it puts you in the running for that cool-ass hat and sign. And that sign, would look great in your man cave. I know for you, Darren, it would look great up there in the Great White North.
Yeah, just note to Lake Monster Brewing. I also like beer.
Oh, yes, Darren does like beer. Us old bloggers do like our beer. And we will. Hopefully, we may even bring you one of the Climb in the Pocket shows with the Brewmasters. We talk beer and football together. We're working on that.
Sounds cool. Sounds cool.
Now, into our final segment of the position groups. Which position group are we talking about today?
We're getting down to the last ones, Dave. David, we're talking about the running backs today, the Vikings running backs, a position where I don't think we have a whole lot of what I should say immediate need at this point, and I do not think that there's going to be much of any movement amongst the Vikings running backs position in 2022. I really think that uh, what you saw in 2021, you're probably going to see in 2022, except for potentially CJ Ham. But then after what Wes Phillips what O'Connell and Phillips were saying about the fullback position, then who knows? But
They may use them. I
the
was looking up
they may use him.
before, and I don't think I have in a while. But I think if they cut him, I think they're only saving like $500,000. It's not a tremendous amount of money.
Yeah,
But they may trade him, try to get something, a draft choice of some sort. Who knows? He may be packaged in a trade, as we discussed Wednesday with Judd Zolgad. Say if the Browns want to trade for Kirk Cousins, he may become part of that package trade where Cousins and Ham goes to Cleveland, and then when from Cleveland we get Mayfield as a bridge, and then draft choices. Who knows? But as of right now, he's on there, and the coaches are saying the right thing that they might actually use him. There are teams in the league that use a fullback, so it's not like there isn't a market.
There'd be more of a market for Dalvin Cook, obviously, and I have seen it thrown out there that the Vikings should consider trading the Cooker, who has got a $12 million cap hit in 2022, which is fairly expensive. And as we talked about earlier, the Vikings have some work to do to get under the cap. I don't really know. I don't really feel that is going to happen, though. If you look at what the Vikings ownership said about that when they hired Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, we feel we're going to be competitive this year. We expect to be competitive this year. When you listen to O'Connell talking about how excited he was when he got the job, and he said with the pieces that he had, particularly on offense, to work with, the strong roster. Well, Dalvin Cook is depending on how you view it, is the Vikings' best offensive player or second
Right.
best behind Justin Jefferson.
Behind Justin Jefferson.
And and there is one of the top 5 running backs in the NFL. We all love watching him play when he's healthy. That's one issue with him. But really, I don't think the Vikings offense, it's not the same without Cook in there. We know that. And I don't think that this new coaching staff, I don't feel, and the front office is ready to get rid of, is ready to trade Cook now and hand the Vikings full running back duties over to somebody like Alexander Madison. I think that I like Madison just fine. He's solid, but when he's in there, the home run threat is gone. He's not going to break off any really long runs. There has always been, he doesn't have the same vision to look, getting into vision for seeing where the hole is and hitting it. Solid guy, runs hard, tough runner, can make that one cut and go, but he's no Dalvin Cook, and I think that the Vikings are going to keep both of those guys because they want somebody they're comfortable with backing up Cook when he inevitably misses some games, and a running back starting running backs in the NFL who get a ton of use, they miss games every year. Like very few top running backs play the whole 16 and now 17 game season.
It's an abusive spot.
It's an abusive spot. So you need a good backup, and then I think Madison is a good backup, not a great backup, but the Vikings are going to roll with him in the same for year number 4 as the backup. I think the big job for O'Connell and the new running back coach Curtis Modkins is what are they going to do with Wang Chung, and coming up with a plan for Kene Wangu. We know he's an awesome kick-off returner. He might already be the best in the NFL. But coming out of Iowa State, he didn't get a lot of touches in his 4 years there. And the scouting reports on Wangu talked about how he wasn't a natural runner, that he didn't read his blocks all that well. And I think in the limited time we saw him use last year, that kind of bore out as true to me. So I think he needs a lot of seasoning.
Can some of that be coached? To me, reading
Yeah.
blocks can be coached. That's
Yes,
a reading
absolutely.
thing. Whereas the whole
Absolutely.
idea of having vision and having the breakout speed, you either got it or you don't. And he has it. Now, GA007 said earlier, draft Cook's brother. I don't know if you saw, I saw either a tweet or on Facebook, they overimposed Dalvin Cook and his little brother doing a 40-yard dash. And Dalvin beats his brother, but it's only by half this, from about his ear back. That's it. Those guys are almost identical when it comes to speed and the 40. I haven't looked at Dalvin's little brother and how he did in college football, but it's an interesting comparison.
I did. I think it'd be too much of a storybook type tale for James Cook to get drafted by the Vikings. But I did watch. I don't watch a lot of college football, but I did watch Cook play in the semifinal and in the college football championship game, and I was really impressed with him. And particularly what I think what he's really good at is when you split him out as a wide receiver. His Dalvin Cook's a very good wide receiver too, but James Cook, you can send him down the field on like wide receiver routes, and he will make plays. But I think he's I don't know if he's a every down type back. I think he's more of a guy can be part of a running back by committee, or he's a third down change of pace guy. But he's a talented cat for sure. But I feel that the Vikings need to invest in Wangu as that
I do too.
guy.
Yeah, because
And
he's got stuff like Cordero
his
Patterson
speed.
that
Yeah.
that most players, 98% of players in the NFL don't have. And to be able to capitalize on that will win games. At least a few a season. So do that. Please.
He needs the coaching. He needs to get coached up more than he appeared to be getting last year. And the Vikings need to determine if he potentially can be the guy who steps in as the starter for you in 2023, when at that point Dalvin Cook is 28 years old, has been in the league for 7 seasons, is getting more expensive. That's about the time where the Vikings where that'd be 2023 is about the time when you might be ready to cut loose Dalvin Cook and you need a replacement. And maybe Kene Wangu can 2022 can get the coaching and get the usage to show that he can be the number one guy, because like you said, he's got the speed. He's got that uncanny ability to beat angles, guys who's got angles to tackle him and make him miss and run past them somehow. And to get that kind of dynamic playmaking guy, if he could be the number one running back, that saves you from using valuable draft capital in 2023 or going into free agency to address your running back position. Because I think in 2022, we're not going to see a difference. We're not going to see much of a change in the Vikings running back, who they've got at running back. I think the Vikings aren't going to draft any running backs in this draft. I think they'll take some guys as undrafted rookie free agents and try to find a Mike Boone kind of guy that way, which you can often do. I don't know about AJ Axel Rose. He did fine in the last year in the preseason,
Until he
but
got hurt.
I found he wasn't. Yeah, but I didn't find he was sudden enough. I didn't find that he was quick and fast enough. I think if you're playing him a lot of snaps at the NFL level, his lack of quickness and an ability to be elusive is going to show up, and he's not going to get you any more than he can possibly get on a running play. So 2022, don't expect to see a whole lot of changes in the Vikings running back unit. Cook's going to be the starter. Madison will be the backup. And hopefully Wang Chung develops enough and eats into some of Madison's playing time so that he can possibly transition into being the number one running back. I'm not convinced that can happen. I wouldn't bet any money on it. I'm more kind of hoping that happens. And then, I guess the only question is, and it's not a big question in my mind, is CJ Ham. Do the Vikings keep him or not? And if they do, what is his role with the team when the Rams didn't use the fullback at all a lot of times in 2021? But 2023 is, I think, when you're going to see the Vikings running back unit. There's going to be a lot of churn, a lot of change there, including potentially Dalvin Cook, who's exciting and one of the best running backs the Vikings have ever had. But
and
when you
I
get
think
up to
the
28,
coaches, when you listen to Kevin O'Connell talk, he's all giddy about having Dalvin Cook there. So I can't wait to see what he does with Cook in the lineup and how his offense maximizes what he can do when it comes to scoring points, the whole object of the game, score more than the other guys, and being a super productive, game plan. That's just, we know it's going to be Jefferson, maybe Thielen, maybe KJ, but in between that, it's going to be Cook here, Cook there, Jefferson, Cook, and it should rock. I want to see the Vikings' average game scoring go up by at least a touchdown next season. We'll see if it happens. They're still in building mode. Hey, trust me, I don't think the Vikings are going to do great and instantly become Super Bowl contenders after this year. I think we've got about 2 years on the build to go, or the reset, especially on the defensive side. But I want to see that offense, because there's not that much change over there, step up that next level. And if we could get 7 more points a game, we're going to be a top 5 offense and most definitely causing problems for the rest of the league.
An extra 7 points is a significant jump.
Ginormous jump.
Yeah.
I'm asking a lot. I know that. If we could say 3 points, that's good. 7 points is ginormous. But I want that. I'm greedy. I'm sorry. I want the Vikings to win. I want the Vikings to score. I want them to be prolific. I want the Vikings to start a dynasty today that lasts for the next decade.
Amen. Skol, however you want to say it. I'm in total agreement with the dynasty thing.
So, with that brings us to the end of the show. First off, I want to thank such a great CTP family that joins us every show to talk with us about the team, to share their views, to talk to each other, checking up on each other. We miss Mary. I know Mary's going through some tough times right now. She will be back. She does watch. She does care about you guys. Trust me. I want to thank Drew for coming over and watching, and the great football talk on his show as well as ours. He's got a good show this week talking about wide receivers. Once you get past the beating the dead horse part, it is very good. Drew, you know what I'm talking about, and he'll laugh. I appreciate you all so much. I just want to express that from my heart. I appreciate that we're growing with our more stuff with Score North and our new sponsor, Lake Monster. So, and Aaron, yes, 76 in Austin, Texas. Goal. Brother, I'm in Austin, Texas too. And it's gorgeous today. Absolutely wonderful. What's it up there in Yellowknife, Darren? What's the present temperature, even in Celsius?
It's only -9 Celsius today. Brilliant sunshine. There's like snow is melting. So yeah. That's pretty good for March the 5th here, actually.
All right. With that, any last words?
Jonathan Hart had a question about if special teams is going to be a subject, and yes, it will. It'll be the last positional group that we'll talk. Next week is quarterbacks, and the week after that is special teams. So Jonathan just wanted to mention that. And the only other thing is I want to talk about is again, like you were talking about earlier, we got like 11 days before things are going to start happening now. David, we've seen some teams releasing a few players. You've seen talk about guys like Cole Beasley being allowed to pursue a trade. So the wheels are starting to turn for NFL teams on roster churn, roster changes. And as we get 11 days into the new league year on March the 16th, and then the 14th starts the legal tampering period. The underwear Olympics are over as of March the 7th, I think, I believe.
Maybe tomorrow.
So we're going to start finding out in short order for the Vikings some of those questions we've had about who's staying, who's going, and if they're staying, at what price are they staying at? And now we'll start to get more of a clear idea of what that vision is that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell talked about in generalities at their pressers. We're going to start seeing actual concrete examples of what players they're looking for and what team the Vikings are going to have in 2022. And I couldn't be more excited about that.
I agree with you. C-Wise talked about draft day trades. C-Wise, the draft is end of April. Let's get through free agency first, get things settled in a little bit, and I guarantee you we're going to talk about possible trades, up, down, sideways, any way we want, so that the Vikings can go to that goal of building a better team in the image that they want to win the championship, so we can carry that Lombardi home and have that. I'll come up to Minnesota for the parade. I have no problem with that. We want to see that. And what do we say, Darren?
We say Skol Vikings and Skol Lake Monster Brewing.
That's right. Lake Monster, we can't wait to taste your products. Hear they're fantastic. Thanks for joining us. And Skol Vikings!
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for watching or listening. As always, if you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And if you're listening to the podcast, please rate us on your favorite aggregator. Skol, everybody.